Hello everyone, so this is our second to last video for Stat 113, so get excited for that. Not that these haven't been a joy to also make, but I'm also excited to have a little bit more time on my hands after these videos are out into the world on my famous YouTube channel. So the purpose of this video is just to talk about interpretations in multiple regression. Mainly, we're going to try to see how similar these are to what the interpretations were in simple linear regression from section 6. And so we're still using this SAT data set. And so I'm going to be referencing this table output on page 2. And let's start by just interpreting this intercept estimate here, this negative 0.8352. So I'll write that there for reference. So before, when we had simple linear regression, we said, and we kind of saw this graphically too, that like when the predictor was 0, the intercept was how much we expected the average response variable to be. Extending this really isn't too different, except now we have more than one predictor. So now I'm going to say when high school GPA, SAT verbal score, and SAT math score are 0. So when my predictors are 0, but don't forget we also have this gender or sex variable, and so we have to make that 0 as well when we're interpreting this intercept, and so that occurs when the student is female. So I'm going to add for a female student. So what would we expect our response to be for this for the average response to be for students with a 0 high school GPA, a 0 on their SAT scores, and we're requiring that the students be female? Well, that's what's given by our intercept. So we expect the average first year GPA to be negative 0.8352 points. All right, so right away we see something's kind of weird here, so we'll get to that in a second, but for now we're just going to note what's new. The only thing that's new from the intercept in simple linear regression is that now we have more predictors. That's it. So it's really not too bad. I'm going to jump down here to this should we interpret the intercept question. And so you might realize that we're predicting, or we're expecting this average GPA to be negative 0.8352 points. That on its own doesn't make sense, but that's really a consequence from extrapolation. And so should we interpret this intercept? No. Now we're requiring that 0 should be within the range of x values for all the predictors. In this case, it's not for high school GPA. We didn't have anyone in our sample that had a high school GPA of 0, and it's actually impossible to get that on the SAT verbal and SAT math. So we're extrapolating. That's why we're getting that kind of nonsense intercept interpretation. Okay. I'm going to next kind of grab one of these slope coefficients. So first we're going to do an interpretation for a quantitative predictor. And so that's 0.01551. And same as before, I'm going to start by saying for a 1, in this case, the units, remember, were kind of funky. because they're in like tens of points. So really this person got like a 620. So for a 10-point increase in math SAT score, we expect the average first year GPA, that slope is positive, so we're expecting it to increase by 0.01551 points. So far, this is identical to what we did in section 6. So nothing has changed at all in this part, at all. Said at all twice. At all, at all, at all, at all. So what's different is that now we're going to add at the end, we're just going to clarify in our interpretation that nothing else is changing. So as long as gender, SAT verbal score, and high school GPA do not change. In other words, we're increasing this math SAT score by 1 unit, but nothing else is changing at all. Everything else is staying the same. If we only increase the math SAT score, we're expecting average first year GPA to increase by about 0.015 points. Okay, so what's new? Well, I'm just going to make it kind of easy and kind of bracket it. So the bracketed part is new. And why this is new is that we need to be clear that only our predictor of interest, in this case the math SAT score, is increasing by 1 unit. All right, so our last interpretation is going to be for a coefficient for a categorical variable. So now I'm going to use an arrow to point here. And so our coefficient for gender or sex is negative 0.1418. So take a second to pause the video and see if you could write out an interpretation for this coefficient as if we were just doing simple linear regression. Okay, did you pause the video? So if you did pause the video, hopefully you came up with something like this is negative, so we would expect the average GPA for male students to be 0.1418 points. So negative, so that means that amount lower than the average GPA for female students. So if you pause the video, you hopefully ended up with something like that. Now I'm going to again bracket this new part just to denote that it's the part that's new, as long as SAT math, SAT verbal, and high school GPA don't change. All right, so that's the only new part here. So what's new? This bracketed part is new. And so again, the reasoning behind it is that we just need to be clear that we are comparing the two genders. Assuming that all these other variables don't change. So assuming that their SAT math, SAT verbal, and high school GPA are the same. So in other words, we're comparing the averages for these two genders on these otherwise level playing field of equal SAT math, equal SAT verbal, and equal high school GPAs. Blurred, 10 seconds over. All right. So as always, let me know if you have any questions, and we'll resume next time with our final video. Yeah.